Scooters. Remember them? Slow, quaint, and a unique way to get around. All those years ago, it seemed that everyone owned a scooter. From Bali to Brighton, Manchester to Madrid, the scooter was the machine to be seen on. Today, though, that novel form of transport is just a distant memory. Or is it?
Around the world. This is the only way to travel. Scooters are not only fun to ride, they're stylish and economical, and they cut through traffic faster than anything else. So if you're mad about scooters, this programme is just for you.
Scooter will tell you all you need to know about the wacky world of scooters, a world that's most definitely alive and kicking. Here's what's coming up. Fancy getting in the saddle? We've been putting some of the world's top products through their paces so that you can see what's on the market and choose your first scooter or upgrade to something quicker. Many enthusiasts like to live in the past. There are clubs catering for all types of scooter fans, but it's the traditional machines that attract the biggest following. Meeting up with other enthusiasts and getting out on the road is what these guys live for. Owning and riding a scooter can become a real obsession. A word of warning, scooter just might get you addicted to the fastest growing form of transport around. Today, millions of people own scooters. It's hard to imagine the world without these fantastic machines buzzing around our towns and cities. So how did this versatile vehicle come about? The origins of the scooter actually date way back to the late 19th century. This could be classed as one of the early models. Built in the early 1920s, it even had front suspension. America was also developing similar-looking machines. This one from the 1930s was little more than a toy, but the seeds were being sown. In Italy, Fiat had developed a prototype with a 98cc engine, but the car manufacturer decided that the future was on 4 wheels. Others, though, had different ideas. Enrico Piaggio saw the potential of the scooter. It's this one man that we should thank for bringing us this great machine. Before it registered the patent for the motor scooter in 1946, his company had already had 60 years of manufacturing experience. Piaggio first built ships, then trains and trams, followed by aeroplanes. Working alongside Enrico Piaggio was a great inventor and character called Corradino d'Ascanio. In the 1930s, d'Ascanio designed all sorts of aircraft, from fighter planes to civilian airlines. As a result, the company became a prime target during the Second World War. The factory at Pontedera was destroyed by Allied bombing. When the conflict ended, Enrico Piaggio had to get some sort of production going again in his factories. The scooter was the answer. In his lifetime, Corradino d'Ascanio had designed a long list of intriguing products, from electric ovens to cigarette cases. This was to be his greatest challenge: to design a product that all of Italy would want, good enough to rescue Piaggio from the ravages of war. The prototype MP5 was nicknamed Paperino, Italian for Donald Duck, but Piaggio didn't like the shape. D'Ascanio refined his drawings, and the Vespa was born and put into production at the rebuilt factory at Pontedera. The shape of the Vespa has hardly changed over the years. Enrico Piaggio loved the sitting position and the fact that the wraparound body protected the rider from the elements. He also pushed hard in getting the bikes exported to countries all around Europe and the world. Among the many innovative features of the MP6 was that the gear change operated by rotating the hand grip so that the movement followed naturally from the activation of the clutch lever. It was, and still is, simple to ride. The Italian people took to the 98cc three-geared Vespa immediately. Their travel plans were no longer restricted by war. They had money and petrol was available again. It gave the population back its freedom. Before long, the Vespa had become part of the scenery in all walks of life. Those scooter skeptics of the early years soon changed their minds when, by 1953, 500,000 bikes had been sold. 3 years later, they'd sold 1 million, and by 1960, over 2 million Vespas were on the streets. The early Vespa adverts emphasised the ride quality, comfort, cleanliness and convenience of the machine, as well as the ease of maintenance. Piaggio didn't have it all his own way, though. Just a year after the Vespa's launch, another Italian, Ferdinando Innocenti, launched the Lambretta. Named after an area of Milan, it enjoyed the same level of success as the Vespa. Many owners believed it was quicker and handled better than the Vespa. Unfortunately, it lacked the Vespa's reliability. Sadly, Innocenti's huge factory ground to a halt in 1971 when its owners went bankrupt. Thankfully, many of these beautiful machines still exist today in the hands of proud owners. The English really took to the scooter in the 1960s thanks to the modernists, or mods, as the Melody Maker music magazine called them. Mod culture was an alternative to the greasy, leather-clad motorcycle riding rockers. The mod's lifestyle and fashion statement was based around the scooter, be it Vespa or Lambretta. They were cool, neat, hip and sharp, and the soundtrack to the experience was provided by bands like the Small Faces and the Who. Their cultural differences led the mods and rockers to come to blows on many occasions, most famously along Brighton's seafront. The first and second generation of mods continued to champion the scooter through the 1970s, years which really belonged to mopeds and motorbikes. It has to be said that these were tough times for the scooter. They were continually improving technically, but the demand was not high, except among the mods and other believers. Vespa, though, knew where their market lay, with the teenager, and while sales were declining slightly at home, worldwide scooters were becoming more and more popular. America and the Far East were the new targets, and for the first time people were finding they could afford the independence and freedom of scooter travel.
Mention scooters and this is what most people think of, but there's a huge variety of bikes out there in all shapes and sizes.
Today we're spoilt for choice. Just where do you start if you want to buy your first scooter? From the myriad of machines out there, which is the one for you? What do you want from a scooter? Cheap transport? A two-wheeled second car? Something sporty or something classic? One other important factor, it's worth finding out which size bike you can ride on your current licence. You may need to take a test and upgrade if the bigger machines take your fancy. From 50cc runabouts to traditional Vespas, right up to 100-mile-an-hour super scooters, we've got together a few of the current favourites to help you decide. Let's begin with a look at three of the best sellers from the French manufacturer Peugeot, a company with a long-term commitment to providing great scooters. First up, the Ellie-Star, a 125cc commuter scooter that Peugeot are particularly proud of. This scooter is fitted with all the very latest bits and bobs, including the most advanced braking system ever seen on a scooter, an integrated servo system with ABS to its discs. It's also fitted with a newly designed fuel-injected four-stroke engine. Capable of over 65 miles an hour, it handles well at both high and low speeds. That superb handling makes even novice riders feel that they could cope with just about anything the roads can throw at them, in all weathers. This is the best-selling scooter in the UK at the moment, the legendary Peugeot Speedfight 2. Single-handedly, this machine has revitalised the scooter market. It's a pretty-looking scooter and a fantastic all-round performer. Cashing in on their successes on the World Rally stage, Peugeot have dressed up the Speedfight in the same livery as their current four-wheeled competition cars. It looks good and sells more units. Like all good machines, it can even carry a full-face helmet under the seat. On the road, it's the scooter that sets the benchmark for others in its class to follow. It's a lot smoother than other two-strokes with its rubber-mounted exhaust and feels perfectly set up to tackle country lanes or when nipping through traffic in towns. With a top speed of around 60 miles an hour, the Speedfight is definitely no slouch for a 100cc machine. Our final French fancy is the more traditional-looking Vivacity. For what you get, this 50cc machine is pretty good value for money, although a little bland in appearance, especially the basic model that we had in dull silver. You can buy a sporty version in yellow with a rear spoiler if you see yourself more of a boy racer than a plodding pensioner, but it's the older generation who we think this particular scooter would appeal to. In restricted form, it's incredibly slow. You'll be hard-pushed to see the needle on the speedo past 30 miles an hour. Still, it does have a special hook for your shopping bag. This just has to be the flashiest, most futuristic-looking model on the market at the moment. The Italjet dragster gets admiring glances from kids and scowls from oldies wherever it goes. It'll certainly bring out the hooligan in anyone. The handling is fantastic thanks to the stiff frame and suspension. It's eager to zip along whichever engine size you go for, 50, 125 or 180cc. Italjet also make the strange-looking Jet Set, which looks like a mini Audi TT on two wheels. That look is down to the funky lights, which look good and work really well. The Jet Set also comes with a choice of 3 economical engines, a 50cc 2-stroke and a 125 and 150cc 4-strokes, none of which move the silver blob along that fast. 55 miles an hour was the best we got out of our 125